Howdy folks, welcome back. So in front of me here I have a 3-point hitch scraper blade for my tractor, which I don't use very often. I do use it a time or two, but not very often. I would like to turn this into something a little bit more useful to me, and coming up I'm going to show you why and how we're going to go about it. So let's get into it. Okay folks, so here's this scraper blade that I bought this at an auction sale. Actually, matter of fact, same auction sale that I bought the snowblower at. And I got it dirt cheap. It was unbelievable how cheap I got it for. These aren't as popular as they once were. And I'm starting to see why. However, I have a bit of an issue. And I would like to turn this into a snowplow blade to put on the front of the loader here, my quick attach. And I'll show you why. So hopefully this will show up. I'm not sure how well. It's snowing right now, so it might be kind of hard for you to see, but here's my driveway. And it's very steep. Well, shouldn't say very steep, but steep. You see how it drifts here? Right here, right where the hill is the steepest. Oh, it drifts like a bugger. And it doesn't matter which way the wind is blowing. As soon as I go by the house, it makes the wind swirl all around and it blows it all at me. I can't see what I'm doing. It's just impossible to blow the snow until I get well past the house. Now, of course, I can't blow coming up in a two-wheel drive tractor, even with the chains on it. With that heavy snowblower, it just won't do it. I tried. So what I end up having to do is just shut the PTO off and push the snow down to the bottom, and then I can deal with it down there. And I can go with the wind. But right here, it just doesn't work out. Now up here, it's no problem. I can usually go with the wind and it's all right, normally. It's just right there that it's a big issue. So because I end up having to push it, I make quite a mess, right? The snowblower, I mean, it works. I've managed to make it work, but it's a huge hassle. So I thought, since I don't use this blade a whole lot, I would like to modify this into something a little more useful to me. Now, if I can mount that on the loader, I can take 2 passes down that steep part of the driveway where all that drift is, and then I can turn around and deal with it with the blower like normally. Now, because this has different holes in it on this side and on this side, so that you can, angle it to push it away. That's sort of the key with any decent snowplow blade, is that you can angle it. I think for next to or no money at all, I can fabricate something here that can be quite useful for me in the snow. Okay folks, we got it in 2 pieces now. So there's your blade, and the way it mounts, big 3/4 bolt there and one there, and then you can slide it around in there. I don't know if that advantage is going to help us any for what we want to do, but we're going to leave that alone. So now what I'm going to do is cut this 3-point hitch affair off. I don't know how long I want to leave that tube, so I'm just going to cut it off fairly long. I'll probably trim it up after, once I decide how long we need it to be. I don't want it to be too long. So, all right, stand by. All right. So, we cut that off, the 3-point hitch part of it. So essentially what I'm thinking here is I'm probably gonna cut this somewhere in this neighborhood, I think. Not exactly certain. And then we'll weld this portion to a plate, a quick attach plate, which we're going to make to suit the loader. And then, of course, some gussets of some sort to sturdy it up. Now, I think I'm going to remove these old supports because it has a series of holes on this side and on this side. So you could use that blade for dragging or for pushing. So since we're just going to be using it for pushing, I think I'm going to drill another hole so that I can pin it on both sides of the pivot. This one's the pivot. It rotates on there and then you drop the pins in, or pin, but it's a little floppy. And like this could do to be tightened a little bit, but I think why I'm saying that is because I believe I'm going to end up putting the blade just on a slight angle this way, so that as I'm going down the hill, I'm pushing the snow that way, and I'm pretty sure it's going to stay that way for the most part. So I think if I pin it on both sides, it's going to make it more sturdy. The blade's not going to dance around on me. So that's my plan. So what's going to end up happening is there's going to be another pin right where this support is. So that's going to have to go. Get rid of that, get rid of that. And I think that'll do just fine. Now, having said all that, yes, I could put a hydraulic cylinder on here to pivot this thing, which would mean adding another valve, because I've only got one set of remotes. And if I have the snowblower hooked up, which I will, I need that set of remotes for my chute. Yeah, I could do that. I could change it all up, but I'm looking to make this quick and dirty, not spend any money, it doesn't have to be, I don't need this to be fancy. Because I'm only snow plowing one area with this, and it's going to be the same pretty much every time. If I was making this for a loader tractor that I was using, if I was blowing snow, plowing snow for a business, 100%. I would make it hydraulic, so you can go down, turn around, come back, and you want to shift the blade back and forth. 100% I would do that. All right, so I rounded myself up a piece of plate, which I had left over from something else. It was something I cut off a 4x8 sheet. I purchased a 4x8 sheet for a job I did for somebody. So that job paid for the whole sheet, and this was the offcut that I saved. All right, all my pieces are cut. I've squared it up. So what I did was I laid that on there as parallel as I could. I tacked it on, and then I built off of that. Because this plate definitely isn't cut square. But what I did then was clamped all the pieces in, and I measured my box here, corner to corner. Right? I'm within a 16. So there is a little overhang in spots just because the cuts were not exactly right. I'm just using a bench top chop saw, which doesn't always give you a great cut. But when it's square, once I weld it up, then I can grind it all to suit. So you can stick it out right here a little. We'll grind that off, and then it'll be finished. So when you're kind of bullshit fabricating like this, that's the way you can do it. going to make a bit more sense now. Got this great big massive piece of 6x6 angle, which is too big for what I want. But everything I had was either too small or too big, so I'm going to go with this and we'll trim it. So the tractor is here, right? This flat piece mounts against the mounting plate on the loader, and the loader has a piece of tube on it. It's going to fit up. If I can do this with a drop inside here, okay? And that's how you hook it on. So that's too much. If I leave it like that, it'll never be able to roll out and release. So you have to have it, at least what I've found is, have it the same leg of the angle, the same length as whatever you're hooking it onto. So since this is 2x2 tube, we're going to trim that off at 2 inches, 2 in on the inside. Okay? So we're going to have to trim this all the way along. This piece doesn't really matter. We can weld this on and then trim it off afterwards, because then that'll give us a guide to run against it to cut it off. But this one here, we're going to have to trim it now before we weld it on. That's the easier way to go. That's a good lesson for you, folks. When you're cutting something like that, make sure your hoses and your feet are out of the way when it falls. Might cut through your hose, which I nearly did. Alright, so now this is trimmed off. I've spaced it. I give it about 2 or 3/8. Because, like we were talking about, it's going to hang on there, and then when you go to release this attachment, you gotta rotate the tip of the bucket, so to speak, and it has to be able to turn that and then pop out. Okay, so that's why I'm giving it that clearance. It's kind of hard to maybe imagine right now. See how there's a crater there where I stopped? Maybe not so bad there, but right there. See how it's cratered right there? You don't want to leave that. That's where a crack will start to form. Okay? So you don't want to do that. You want to fill that in. Now, I'm doing it pretty fast and pretty hot, so that's why I'm ending up with that. But it's important to note that you don't want to leave it like that. You see that all the time on production welded stuff, where they have craters. You don't want that, not on something like this, because that's where a crack will start to form, okay? So fill those in. If you end up with them, and you will, I do quite often, just make sure you fill it in. Alrighty guys, that's how it fits on there, okay? So maybe it's starting to make a bit more sense. And there's the slots. Okay, I've already marked them. There's one there, one on the other side. That's where that piece will stick through. So I've already marked it, but that's more or less how it's going to go. And then the rotating part, that part sitting in there, is going to be welded in there. But let's get this back inside the shop, because look at the beautiful sunshine. Don't let that fool you. It's bitterly, bitterly cold out here. Beautiful day if you wanted to go downhill skiing or something, because there's no wind, but it is really cold. Piper, come on. Come inside. Okay, so I blasted the holes, or the slots, whatever. So what's going to happen now is we're going to put these tabs in those holes. Alright, and I'm going to let it protrude out the other side, maybe a 1/4 inch or whatever it is, so I can get some good weld on the back side. You can put a little bit of weld here, but not much. You end up having to grind it up a bit so that the plate sits flat against the other plate, so you don't get a good substantial fillet weld there. Most of your strength is going to come from the back side. But before we weld those in, we now we need a slot here to facilitate the wedge that's going to go. The wedge is going to drop down through there, through the slot we create there. Right? And as you use this attachment, the wedge kind of wedges itself in deeper usually, and it's nice and tight. Normally you got to, not always, but quite often you got to whack it with a hammer to get it out. That's okay. The tighter it is, the better fit you get. So before we weld that in there, we're going to have to make ourselves a slot. Now, it would be nice if I had a milling machine. I could just drop an end mill in there and mill myself a nice slot, but I don't have one. So normally how I do it is just drill a hole and a hole where I want to stop. And then you can plasma cut the sides out, or zip cut it if that's all you have, to join the two holes together. That's the best way I can do it here. And then you can kind of clean it up with a die grinder and somewhat make it look like a proper slot. So I'm going to go ahead and drill some holes. I'm going to use, all right guys, so we cut our slots, and I actually did sort of a horrible job of cutting the slots. I'll just show it to you real quick. It's not great. I got a bit wonky and a bit crazy with the plasma cutter. But anyway, it doesn't matter that much. We're not showing off here. This is practicality we're looking for. So anyway, this is how it's going to end up, right? There's your wedge. So I'll just stick the wedge in there, and I'll kind of, by eye, I'll center it up, kind of square it up as best I can. Then I'll tack it on this side, and then I'll flip it over and weld it from the other side. So I'll tack those in, flip it over, weld it from the other side, right? And then our mounting portion of this is done. Because you're using a wedge, and it's very forgiving. I'll chamfer these so they lead into the slots on the tractor better. Once they're welded in, I'll grind them up nice. And it's very forgiving. So there's no need to get crazy about it. This is going to work well. All right. So the next step, we need to trim this piece of tube off here, because this is going to go here. So this space will be facing up, and that's what the blade bolts onto, if you remember. Now, I don't know, this is a guess. I don't know, I don't want this sticking out too far, but I want it sticking out far enough that I can rotate that to angle the blade without interference. Okay, so here's where we're at. I don't know, I could have maybe left it a little bit longer, but I think it bolts onto this angle iron piece, which sits out another 2 inches, so it gives you another 2 inches above this. I think that's going to tilt enough. I don't think I'm going to need much more than that anyway. Hopefully, because it's too late, I already cut it. So, let me tack that in there nice and strong, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna gusset that. So, all right, so we've got some braces welded, tacked in here now, that way, and then I put one in the middle, just like that, because this is going to be hanging inverted, and hopefully that'll keep that plate from buckling on me. Don't know. We're intending on just using this to push snow. However, inevitably you hit hard things, and you know, bad things can happen. So I'm hoping that that's going to be enough. We shall see. But now we are ready to weld this up, and I better get to it. I am almost out of MIG mix here on my welder, so I really don't want to have to go to the Air Liquide depot is probably a half hour from me, so it's a bit of a hassle. I'm hoping to avoid that today. Anyway, let me go ahead and weld this up, and then we'll be ready to try it out. All right, folks, there she is, all assembled and ready to try. Now, I'm not sure if it shows up real well on the camera, but you notice that the blade is not parallel with the mounting plate. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but that swivel affair there that was on the original scraper blade, it was bent, and it was like that when I got it. So it's gonna, and that it should be right now where it's where it's pinned, it should be parallel with the plate, but it is not because it's bent. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. Actually, it's bent the right way for me because as I plow down the hill, it's going to be pointing the way I want it to. Instead of into the hill, it'll be pushing it towards the field. So that's actually going to work out well. I could have done maybe something about that, but I didn't think it was really worth messing around with for what this is. This is just a homemade, you know, redneck snowplow. I'm not going to, well, I say I'm not going to use it to plow dirt, but I'll probably change my mind eventually. Anyway, the tractor was outside all night and it's running, but it is not happy, so it's going to need a bit of time to warm up, and we'll then pull it in and hook it up, see if it lines up, and give it a try. Okay, folks, there it is. I wasn't able to get much footage of me trying it out. It started snowing like a bugger. And as a matter of fact, I had to go get my ski goggles on because it was blowing right at me. I couldn't see anything. But it worked pretty good. I was able to scrape right down to the gravel basically on the hilly part of the driveway, which is what I wanted, because that can get quite slippery when it's cold out and it glazes up and gets hard. So I did a bit of scraping. I even did a bit of back dragging with it away from the house by the door, and I think that's going to work okay. And it actually doesn't look near as ugly as I thought it would. But having it on here, I can put down pressure on it and actually scrape, which is what I wanted. Come springtime, when the snow starts to melt during the day, I'll get, you know, this much slush on the driveway itself, and if I don't get at it and scrape it off, and it freezes overnight, then it leaves me with a mess. Like, it's just awful. So I needed to do this for a while. I just finally got time to get at it and do it. So the scraper blade we had, we just butchered it up a little bit. I had some leftover material from some other stuff kicking around. It cost me nothing but a bit of time. Now, if I'd have stayed at it, I would have had this all done in one day, but I get sidetracked quite often, and I don't know, this probably took me 2 days. With a bit of scrap material, I now have myself a much more useful tool than what I had before. So I'm going to call that done. I'm not going to make any more modifications to it until I try it for a little while. I'm going to have to kind of get the feel for it and see whether I need to change things or whatever. But so far, I'm pretty happy with it. So that just goes to show you, being a little creative, you can build yourself something useful. We're going to leave this one here for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.